the chart was telling us we were going to go down, right? You had this classic bearish channel going on here, especially off of this most recent dump in June. And so it was just a matter of when it was going to break down. And it's the amazing stuff about it is, the bearish chart, then, you don't know what it's going to be. In this case, it was this black swan event with FTX. But the problem here is that you now have a breakdown of kind of this trend line that marked the low pivots all across here. And so if we can't recapture it in the next day or two, I would be really concerned that this is let's go back to, I'm going to take you guys all the way back on my chart to 2018, right? So here we go. All right. So basically look at this low here, which was the beginning of this quiet period, right? This low began in basically, well, really it's over here in June, right? So here was your low. You got this bounce, a little bit of chop, and then it went to sleep. And remember, crypto went to sleep over the last like 2 weeks. It was super, even 3 weeks, it was super, super quiet. And then look at what happened in 2018. You had this dump, kind of pause, and then this is basically where the final flush came in. We lost 50% on Bitcoin. Okay. So again, remember June, and where did the dump start? In November. All right. Now let's spin ahead here to the current price action. And what we can see is in June, again, just in 2022, that's when the low is put in. You got kind of those same early bounces here.
With a new black swan happening in the crypto space, this time with Sam Bankman-Fried's FTX, investors are getting way more scared of the future. We are seeing Bitcoin drop and create newer lows after a consolidation phase, and we all know that history repeats itself, so crypto may be in deep trouble. In today's video, Gareth Soloway, owner of the InTheMoneyStocks.com and VerifiedInvestingCrypto.com with over 20 years of experience and a huge success rate on his trades, will give a new Bitcoin price prediction based on the current events and what the charts are saying. He will also show you his targets and a powerful strategy you should be following to ensure you protect your wealth in bear markets while you keep accumulating crypto if you believe in the long-term bull case. This video is packed with value, so please make sure you watch everything carefully.
And I really tie crypto in with the stock market a lot because it's a fear factor, right? So if the stock market goes lower, and I do believe it will go lower in 2023, it's likely to take crypto down. And I think we have to always remember that, this is the first cycle with no Federal Reserve stimulus, and at least for now. And even if they pause hiking rates, they're not going to go to lowering rates until inflation is substantially lower or the economy is essentially in a depression and they have no other choice. And so what that does is it potentially prolongs the bear market longer than previous bear markets, which were like 12, 18 months. And I think, again, we could be in a 2-year plus bear market before we finally get those lows. Historically, great ideas start under the best of intentions, right? And then over time, regulation or big money comes in and kind of screws it up. And I hate to say it, but it's probably going to be the way crypto goes. The only positive is if we're smart and we accumulate down here, and if it does happen to go lower, we can all go for that ride and make a ton of money along the way. But I have no doubt that, when has the government actually done anything that's been great, right? I mean, it just doesn't happen anymore. So for the last year plus, I've been saying we need regulation. And I know that's kind of like taboo in the crypto markets, but like Magic said, if we want big money to get involved and you want Bitcoin to go to 100,000 to 500,000, you have to get big money involved. And again, these funds, these pension funds, all these things, they have this fiduciary responsibility to only invest in things where they do their due diligence, they can quantify the risk. And when you don't have transparency and like anything like that, they just can't do it. And if you got these big players involved, Bitcoin would soar. I mean, just imagine them putting like 1% of all their assets and, trillions of dollars into Bitcoin, and we're all rich, right? So, I mean, some people look at it as as like, oh, don't get involved. We don't want regulation. We don't want the government to control it. I'm from the investor side, right? I've always been a trader and investor in my life. I'm like, I kind of want to know if something's a fraud so I don't lose all my money, right? I mean, like, let's do this. Let's get it in there so we can all make money on the way up. And I think that's what we need. And I agree that the low will be probably put in right around when that regulation comes out.
So, according to Gareth, Regulation is necessary to protect investors and allow the big players to enter the crypto markets and get Bitcoin to explode. Still, at the same time, it needs to be a good regulation with the people in mind, not just the government's interests. Kevin O'Leary said the same thing a few days ago. We can only find the lows when regulation starts, so it seems to be a shared vision. Now, let's look at the charts for Ethereum and Bitcoin and hear what Gareth has to say about current prices and future targets.
The wedge pattern broke. Again, when you break a level, there's always a period of time where it can technically recapture, but that time is ticking away. It's like a stop clock, right? And so you can see right here, we broke below, we bounced back, but look right away, the high from today/yesterday, since we just started the new candle, was right there and it couldn't get through. So can it do that in the next 24 hours? That would be important if it could recapture this upsloping trend line. If not, I think you're going to start heading down, and then you start attacking this kind of low pivot from June, which was around $900 or so. That'll be your next key level. And if that breaks, if Bitcoin really starts to collapse, if there's more of these kind of shady practices being done with other coins, then you're really talking about heading down to where the bull market began in 2020, where you're going down to that 600 level, 700 level, maybe even a little bit lower, down to 5 or 4. Again, for me, I do like Ethereum longer term. I think it has a ton of use case. So I think as you get down, you just, you patiently wait, let the levels hit, and then think about nibbling a little bit. But when I say nibbling a little, it's important to recognize that, and I'm sure Magic would agree with this, is that, there's plenty of levels I bought that I thought were going to be great levels, and the market said nope, and it went right through. And so by nibbling, you give yourself that opportunity to trade around the position a little bit, right? So once you commit all your capital, there's no trading around that position. You're done. You're just riding that. And so as a good trader, you want to always be able to maneuver. I look at technical levels and I say to myself, okay, there's a 70% chance of a bounce here, so I'm going to commit X amount of capital. That means 30% chance it's going to break. So then I look for the next level. If it breaks, I buy more there. And ultimately, when you have 70% odds, maybe not the first time, but the second time you should get that technical bounce. At one of those times you will, and you can ultimately at least make a small amount on the trade. So the trading psychology is important. One of the things I love talking about is the discipline. The mental discipline of a trader is so important. And then understanding the psychology of market. To understand greed and fear and how to not get swept up in greed and fear, but also how to use it to your advantage, right? So when you see this kind of blood in the streets, people panicking, and you're starting to hit major technical levels, that's where you start to nibble with the technicals and the psychology of the market. So just kind of cool stuff, across the board.
What about Bitcoin? What's happening, and what can we expect now?
The chart was telling us we were going to go down, right? You had this classic bearish channel going on here, especially off of this most recent dump in June. And so it was just a matter of when it was going to break down. And it's the amazing stuff about it is, the bearish chart, then, you don't know what it's going to be. In this case, it was this black swan event with FTX. But the problem here is that you now have a breakdown of kind of this trend line that marked the low pivots all across here. And so if we can't recapture it in the next day or two, I would be really concerned that this is the next wave of selling that takes us down 12, 13, 14,000 area. Now we got to 15 and change. I was a little surprised we didn't pierce 15. Sometimes they like to pierce those even numbers, trigger stops before a bounce. But I think the Fed kind of saved it. Well, not the Fed, the CPI number saved the day. It helped get bullish sentiment on there. The one thing I'd like to point out, though, is that even with Bitcoin's move, it still comparatively to the stock market didn't outperform that much. The NASDAQ was up 7% on the day. That happens once every 10 years in the NASDAQ. Today was not a once every 10 years type epic move up in crypto. So I think we have to also kind of take that into account. And there's just a lot of damage done in crypto. I mean, we thought we got through it with Terra Luna, and now you have another issue here where the mismanagement of client funds is involved. And it just begs to ask for, I hate to say this, but we need rules for crypto. We need transparency in these companies. Otherwise, I fear that, and again, I wonder how many more things out there are going on that we aren't aware of. Let's go back to, I'm going to take you guys all the way back on my chart to 2018, right? So here we go. All right, so basically look at this low here, which was the beginning of this quiet period, right? This low began in basically, well, really it's over here in June, right? So here was your low, you got this bounce, a little bit of chop, and then it went to sleep. And remember, crypto went to sleep over the last like 2 weeks. It was super, even 3 weeks, it was super, super quiet. And then look at what happened in 2018. You had this dump, kind of pause, and then this is basically where the final flush came in. We lost 50% on Bitcoin. Okay, so again, remember June, and where did the dump start? In November. All right, now let's spin ahead here to the current price action, and what we can see is in June, again, just in 2022, that's when the low was put in. You got kind of those same early bounces here, and then we went to sleep, and then we dumped out. So it's amazing. June to November in 2018, and then the dump, June to November in this sixth segment, and then the dump. And again, I wonder if this is kind of that final move lower that could take us down 50%, like in 2018, which would basically put Bitcoin around 10,000, would maybe mark a low pivot. Again, you broke this lower thing, and like he said, and like we talked about earlier, you have to recapture this area here. I really want to see it like a weekly close back above the low from June, which was around 17,600, give or take a little bit. My guess is it's not going to do it, just based on what we're seeing in the crypto sector. And again, I think there are more black swan events out there that will likely come to light, and it's going to freak people out. It makes them very cautious about buying down here. Having said that, I think for me, again, the 13,000 area here, if I put in a trend line, I'll show you guys what I'm looking at. So I think this is your next major support area right in here. And you can see it's this pivot high, and then there's this little blip right over here as well. And before it broke out, and that was really the breakout that started around 12.5, is what took us all the way up to that 65,000 on that first high up. Now, one of the things I liked that Magic said was that basically you can see here, if you go back to 2017 before that run, and you take a line and you connect it through the lows in 2018, so the cycle lows prior to the 2017 point, the aftermarket lows from 2018 after that cycle high, it connects right through the COVID low right here, and that gives us right around 8,000, 7,800, kind of right around that 7,500 level. So I do think if 12 and 13 area breaks, that's your next likely target.
Gareth Soloway says this may be the next wave of selling, that we can have a 50% drop down from current prices, and even though that may be scary, there's also a strategy that he recommends to ride it. Pay close attention.
We know that Bitcoin is that commodity per Gary Gensler, so it kind of gives me a little clarity on the regulation for that. And I guess I just want to stay with best of breed at this point. So as it comes lower, I'm just basically putting a little bit of money to work every $2,500, $3,000 lows from this point on. And I'm just going to kind of tuck that away, as I do think we will eventually get that bull run. I do think Bitcoin eventually becomes more of a gold scenario where it does well in uncertainty, and the scarcity aspect, I think, does really, really help. Never trade just to trade, right? There's this junkie mentality where you get this emotional kind of high by getting in a trade, and you're just, so it's a gambler's mentality, right? And I think Magic would agree is that if you're trading right, you're not gambling. All right, doesn't mean you're going to win 100% of the time, but you're at least putting the odds in your favor, versus gambling, as we know, is 50-50 at best, most likely less than that. So I think that's a super important thing. I mean, in the trading room where I do mostly stocks, like literally we'll maybe average one trade a day, but we win 80-90% of the time, right? So it's a matter of sometimes we sit on our hands and do no trades for like 2-3 days, and newbies come in, they're like, what the heck are you doing? And it's important to recognize that the market tells you when to trade. You don't tell the market when to trade, right? And it's as soon as you start telling the market when you're going to trade, you're going to lose. And it's just that simple. So,
and let's hear what's his final recommendation on how to succeed as a trader and how to make sure you make the most profits while protecting your money.
And one of the things I always say is, like, if you're a real, like, there's some people out in the crypto world who, they're cocky, they're all this stuff. And I always say is that a real trader is never cocky, because we've all gone through the market punishing us, And as soon as you think you've got the answer and you've gotten beyond it, you get punished again. And it's very humbling. Like, this game is unbelievably humbling. I mean, I just, for me in my early career, I had just gotten to 100K in my trading account, which was basically at that time all my money. And then in one day, 70,000 was gone because I kept on going in, thinking it was going to bounce, thinking, and this was a stock at the time, and it just never bounced. And at one point I was in day trading, you got 4 times. And by the end of the day, I had $30,000 left. And just like that, wiped out all that work of months and months and months. And it's a humbling game. So you learn from it. But even to this day, there are trades where I get in and it just doesn't do what I think it's going to do. And the only difference now is that I'm smart enough to not over allocate, right? It's money management is everything, but it's still humbling. It still makes you say, wow, like, yes, I win most of the time, but as soon as I get cocky, I'm going to get smoked.
We hope you took a lot of value from this video, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe for daily updates. What are you doing with your crypto? Do you have a strategy in mind? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks.